Today I wanted to do a quick little review over a book I read for one of my college courses that I very much enjoyed, that I was not aware existed. And that book is We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. I always forget the name. And this is essentially a science fiction book centered around a dystopian future city controlled by a totalitarian government, a government that just controls every aspect of everyone's lives. Where people are, their names are replaced with a letter and then a number, for example. Like, the main character's name is D503, and he's the main character of the story, and it follows other characters. There's an I character and an S character with numbers after their names, I can't recall. And it's very similar to George Orwell's 1984, if you've ever read that, or know anything about it. I think most people do, if you're interested in literature. Most people have read or at least heard of 1984. Now, the weird thing about this, because I wasn't aware of this, is that this book is the original 1984. This book was written in the 1920s in the USSR, Soviet Russia, and was, at the time, censored. It wasn't allowed to be published because the government wasn't stupid. They understood it was a criticism of them, criticizing the government, the way the country was being ruled at the time. So for that reason it was pushed away, no one could read the book, censored, etc. Until I believe the 80s, a very long time actually, that it was completely just censored, before anyone could get their hands on a copy of it. But George Orwell read this book, and it's what gave him the inspiration for 1984 originally. So if you've read that story and enjoyed it, I feel fairly comfortable saying you'll probably enjoy We, and that is spelled like the English we, by the way, not the French we. The story takes place in the future, in a city surrounded by a giant wall, and no one can leave the city. And there's a supreme leader to the government known as the Benefactor, and he oversees everything, and the government can see everything. They have cameras everywhere. People have to do everything through the government. So, like, for example, everyone's time is allotted. So you wake up in the morning, and then your schedule is planned. You have to go to work for this long, then you come back, and then you say you'll have an hour of free time to do at your home, doing whatever you want. And if you want to perform consensual acts with a lady friend, for example, you need to go and get a form filled out addressing how long you want to do it for and the day, etc. And people are given different amounts of time based on their libido and things like that. So it's very well established that the government has complete control of all of its population in the story. And the story follows, as I previously mentioned, a man named D503, who begins spending time with a woman whose number I can't recall, but her letter is I. And he meets with her once and is oddly attracted to her. Not necessarily in a sexual sense, not even in a platonic sense, but in the sense that there's something about her that he can't figure out why he wants to see more of her and get to know her more. So he goes out of his way and even a few times breaks the law by not following his schedule to go and meet with her in various places, like an old part of town, which is illegal to go to, and then do things like consume alcohol with her, which is also illegal, mind you. All of which he feels obliged to report to the government because he feels as though he's been a bad citizen, but he doesn't do that. And then eventually it gets into this sort of plot of him finding out there's a rebellion forming, trying to overthrow the Benefactor and the government, and D503 had never thought this kind of thing existed. You know, he thought, how could there be people trying to overthrow the government? It's perfect, it runs everything, it does it for us, and we are the loyal subjects to the government, that sort of thing. And then he ends up joining the rebellion, and some things happen, and I don't want to go into it too much more than that, you'll have to read it yourself. The main point I'm going to get at here, if you enjoy science fiction, if you enjoy any kind of dystopian future stories, if you enjoyed 1984, or you know of any works similar to 1984 you enjoyed, I am fairly comfortable saying that you will enjoy We. I thought it was a very good book. It was very enticing to me. There are some things in here, it might be a little difficult to understand, It might take some time to figure out some of the things going on, because there are a lot of kind of symbolic metaphors, kind of things, like a whole chapter where D503 just talks about how he doesn't like, I think it was either the square root of pi or the square root of -1. I should know this, I'm terrible with math though, but he doesn't like it because it's an imaginary number and it's irrational, and imaginary things can't exist because the government has to make everything that exists since this long, but they don't tell you that directly, you have to infer all of this. So at times, it might be a little challenging, I'm just going to throw that out there. If English isn't your first language, it might be difficult. If Russian is your first language, I would encourage you to pick up the Russian text, because with my limited knowledge of Russian, from what I read of that, it seemed to be much more eloquent in the way it stated things, as I generally find the original translations to be, but I digress. Point is, once again, if you enjoyed 1984 or any similar science fiction, dystopian, totalitarian government books, or anything of the genre, you will enjoy We. I think it's a great book, and I'm more than happy to give it a 4 out of 5 star rating, something I greatly enjoyed, and honestly, I kind of want to read it again, even though I read it about less than a year ago. It was very entertaining. I think I'll go do that right now. I hope you can pick yourself up a copy if you liked it too, so thank you very much.